how do we learn about ancient civilizations? Sure, you can read a book or watch a documentary, but the people at the University of Michigan Kelsey Museum believe that found objects give us a better, more complete understanding of those civilizations and the people who lived in them. Museum Director Sharon Herbert explained for me the critical role of the museum's namesake, Francis W. Kelsey, in establishing collections of antiquities at the University of Michigan.
Professor Kelsey was a professor of Latin starting in 1889, and he was an amazing visionary. He understood in a way that most people then didn't, the power of the object to connect people with the past. So starting in the 1890s, he made trips to Europe and to North Africa. And he started to purchase objects to broaden the education of students in classical studies. He formed something called the Friends of Near Eastern Studies and raised enough money to first go looking for places to excavate and then to actually start excavations. This was before the Kelsey Museum existed. The University of Michigan, our first project was in Antioch in Pisidia in Turkey. He then went on to Carthage, and then he really hit pay dirt in a site in Egypt called Karanis. He somehow early on had the idea, where these cultures come together, that's where there are going to be some really interesting questions and answers.
Through his purchases and excavations, Francis Kelsey obtained a substantial amount of antiquities on behalf of the University of Michigan. However, 50% of all excavated artifacts remained in the host country.
The local archaeologists had first pick, so that anything that was really special, unique, that stayed in the country.
Since 1927, the Kelsey Museum has been housed in a Victorian-era building on State Street. With a generous gift of $8.5 million, the museum has added an extensive new wing.
For well-traveled adults who want to know more about Mediterranean societies, and for high school students who learned about cuneiform writing and want to see the real thing, the museum opens the door to the wonders of human civilization.
The new William E. Upjohn exhibit wing allows for a four-fold increase in the number of antiquities the Kelsey Museum can have on display.
We have now every one of our 100,000 plus antiquities has been moved out of this building. We have wonderful state-of-the-art storage facilities in the basement of the new wing, and then our 2 floors there are completely climate controlled.
The holdings in the basement storage area are in themselves remarkable, so I asked Curator Elaine Gazda to give me a tour of the exhibition areas in the new wing. So tell me a little bit about the new wing and the thought process that went into the layout and the architecture of the space.
Well, this is a dramatically different building from the original Kelsey Museum, which is a Victorian building. This is very modern, very sleek, and it was very open. So it allowed us to think about how we could use an open floor plan to suggest to viewers how different cultures connect to one another. And we set up sight lines between one culture and another. We try to strike themes that run more or less throughout the exhibits to help people get a sense of the interconnectedness of the ancient world.
So tell me a little bit about what we see here.
Well, we're passing from the ancient Near East into an area that is Egypt, and right here we have on display a major piece of a mummy coffin, which is very elaborately painted and is full of symbols and texts. The Book of the Dead is inscribed in these hieroglyphs in horizontal rows, and it consists of a lot of magical spells that protect the dead person from harm as he passes from life into the world of the dead.
So other than the coffin, what other objects do we have from Egypt?
Well, this entire section is dedicated to Egypt. And it goes from pre-dynastic Egypt, very early, before the pharaohs, all the way through the period when the Romans ruled Egypt. We're now in the Roman period of Egypt, in a town called Karanis. And Karanis was excavated by the University of Michigan in the 1920s and 1930s. Professor Kelsey had the vision of excavating a normal, ordinary sort of town and recovering artifacts of all kinds from daily life. Jenn, there's something very special here that I want to show you. I hope you'll be pleased and surprised.
Wow.
This is a room replicated from a very famous room in Pompeii at a villa called the Villa of the Mysteries. Now, these are watercolors. They're not the ancient paintings themselves.
The colors are so vivid in this room. Is this how they are in the original painting?
Yes, they are. You can't see them quite as vividly in Pompeii itself because the lighting in the room where the original wall paintings still exist is not very strong.
What does this painting tell us about the family that owned the villa where this piece was originally?
We have a sense that some sort of perhaps initiation rite was happening or a fertility rite of some kind. So this may have had special meaning to the women of the house.
Elaine, this new wing has been quite an expansion for the Kelsey Museum.
Yes.
What does it mean for your mission? What does it mean for the people who you're able to reach through these objects?
Well, it means a lot. We are able to show a lot more, obviously, than we could in the smaller galleries. We hope that we're going to be able to reach more classes. We already are seeing a higher volume, much higher volume of classes. Of course, the general public is also a major audience.
As an archaeologist, there's nothing like actually being able to work with the objects. You know, some historians work with their texts, but we read the objects. So, especially when I like the layout here, it's easy to interact.
What do you think the original Kelsey would say about this expansion?
Oh, I think Professor Kelsey would be thrilled. He really wanted to have a museum here on campus. I think he would be absolutely thrilled.